All right, welcome back. Hi, Mickey.
Hey, Michelle.
So we got a good question, or I got a good question this week from an athlete. And we're going to call this podcast To Train or Not to Train. And here's a
Love it.
question. And yeah, it's such a good one. There's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of it depends. And I think that we'll probably be answer this for a full hour. Question. How do you know when your body really needs a break? Or is it better to try and do whatever workout or practice is scheduled, knowing that I just can't give 100%? So I got this was actually a text message from one of my athletes, and I actually don't know her that well yet. She's sort of new to me. And so I wrote, my response back to her was like, great question. Number one, thank you for asking. Like, this is the kind of question that it's like, yes, for me, like reach out and text and ask. And my answer to that is 100% going to be dependent on the athlete and what I know about the athlete. And so even as we're talking about this today, if you don't have a coach, and so this is the kind of question that you as an athlete are asking yourself commonly, what you can do is listen to this podcast to get an idea of like, how is the coach thinking about it, right? Like, what are the
Yeah.
factors that are involved here? And so I, I immediately went back to a memory of another time that I got a similar kind of text like this. It came from an athlete that I'd been coaching for a long time, so I knew her really well. She's a real go-getter, high achiever, kind of like all green boxes, the kind that always does every workout. And at one point I got a text from her and it said, "Hey, how important is my run this afternoon?"
Mm,
Okay. First of all, like you never send me a text like that and
yeah.
ask, right? Which means
Right.
that you are so far down a hole that like it is out for you right now. Like I didn't even need to ask her any other questions because the fact that she sent me a text to ask was in and of itself the answer. Like you should not train. Like if you have to ask because and again, but my answer to that was based on like my knowledge of
No. Yeah.
her as an athlete and like her mindset, the type of athlete that she is. Like she's the kind that would like drag herself over glass and nails to get to the pool to do the workout, no matter how tired she is. So if she's questioning her own ability to do something, then it's like you should rest, right? This athlete, like I don't know well enough to be like like that's automatically the answer. Although, typically speaking, if you're going to go out of your way to like send a text and ask somebody that question, I mean, probably what you're looking for is like permission to not
Hmm.
do the workout, right? Like you're
Yeah.
likely so tired that you're looking for permission because you're not giving yourself or you don't feel comfortable giving yourself permission to skip the workout, which in a case where like athlete and coach are new, totally
Hmm.
fair, right? Because she's
Yeah.
like still trying to figure me out. I'm still trying to figure her out. So what I wrote back to her was largely along the lines of like, well, it depends, right? On different circumstances. Because there are other people who are looking for any reason to skip training because they really like don't love training that much, right? or
Exactly.
like or
Exactly.
like the goal isn't that important to them. Kind of hot out, like it's too hot or it's too cold, or like pick a reason, right? Like there are some athletes that would just they don't love training. And so they're going to look for a reason. And if they can find any kind of like, we'll call it an authority figure, like who gives them permission to not train, then they can feel good about a decision to not train. So I don't think it's a blanket across the board. If you're asking that question, the answer is skip training, but
Right.
it's more
No.
along the lines of like, how different is this for you than where you're normally coming from, right? So if
Hmm.
normally you're the type of athlete that's really motivated, you're trying to achieve your goals, you're a go-getter, you've taken care of all the other things in your life, like you prioritize your sleeping and you eat well and you're doing all the things, and you're like, wow, I just found myself really tired. Yeah, then you should definitely rest when your body
Hmm.
is saying rest. Um,
Hmm.
and so
Yeah.
I would likely err on the case of rest versus not when I get a text like this. But I will say, and this is where I'll share this anecdote and then I'll toss it over to you to be like, tell me what your thoughts are. I had a coach, this is over a decade ago, probably a dozen years ago, who, and to be fair, I told him, like, don't treat me with kid gloves. Like, like treat me like I'm a very serious athlete who's like trying to achieve my goals. And so approach my training that you're writing me through that lens. And when I was complaining of like, my hip is hurting, like at one point where it was just like, I like, and I'm sending in this message, like, what do you think? Like, it hurts to walk. Like, my hip really hurts. Should I? And I have 2 runs on the schedule that day. And he literally was like, go out and shuffle like a boxer, right? Like, so
Mm,
instead of like, stay home and rest and do mobility and blah, blah, he's like, no, go
yeah,
out and
go.
just shuffle like a boxer, like in a way that doesn't hurt. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, even shuffling like a boxer hurts. But like, I listened to him. Like, I went out and I shuffled like a boxer. And he was the kind of coach who his answer to this would be across the board. You go
Train.
out and you start. You at least start and you see how you feel. And if you don't feel great, then you just keep it easy, but you still do like the best you can on the given day. And if the best you can is like not that good, then fine. It is what it is. Go to sleep and try again tomorrow. And I followed that philosophy for about 11 months with all of my worst race results ever in my career. And then I fired that coach.
Yeah. Well,
so
the
like, so like that was my experience with like, just train through it, buck up. Like my personal experience has not been good with that kind of approach. So anyway, over to you, Mickey.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna comment that I think when there's a combination of like any kind of injury or potential injury, or like, your hip hurts, your knee hurts, and you have intensity on the schedule, or even a double run or a single run or anything that's going to impact the body part that's ailing you at that moment, that's a different situation for me as a coach than I'm really tired, right? So I will say, so if someone comes to me and said, my knee's really achy and it's kind of new, and I usually, maybe it's from the run. I mean, it's almost always from the run, to be honest. So usually what I'll say is like, okay, let's skip the run today, and let's do a bike instead, an easy bike, or maybe we'll swim. I ask what's easiest for the schedule. Let's give it a couple days to rest. And then let's try a tester run, right? 10, 20 minutes and see how it feels. And then we can get back into it. Because by not doing that and trying to run through it, a lot of times it does make that injury, or that the thing that maybe not is an injury yet, right? But it becomes an injury by continuing to do whatever it is that's aggravating that, knee, hip, whatever it might be. So that being said, I take a different approach if it's someone's coming to me with that, like I've got something going on that's not normal from an injury perspective. Fatigue is tough. And I totally agree with how you would approach it, right? Like I've worked with, I'm thinking of one athlete in particular, super go-getter. She's an MD, gets up at like 3:30 in the morning to do her workouts, like very driven. And when she, like either cuts something short or she skips it altogether, I'm like, that's the best choice. Like, she needs extra sleep. I never question it. We've been working together for so long that at the end, she never even asked. She just put it in Training Peaks. Like, I really needed an extra 2 hours of sleep for like a swim, right? Because she had to get up at 3:30 in the morning to go swim. And I'm like, that was the right call. Like, I can't be there with her to make those calls, but I trust her, and we've worked together long enough that when she's tired, it's like, we got to rest. And then we might need to adjust the schedule a bit if we have hit kind of combo of work stress, right? No, not a lot of sleep and a heavy training block, to revamp, take the intensity out for a few days, easy spinning, easy running, easy swimming, right? To kind of give that athlete recovery. And I guess I should say this athlete's also a master's athlete. So I have tended to take the approach of easy movement for master's athletes versus some of my younger athletes that I think they can take almost full rest days, sit on the couch for a couple days, right? And do whatever they want to do. Whereas I think as we get, and I'm not going to throw out any ages because I think it depends again on the athlete, but easy movement, like walking, super easy swimming, like zone 1 on the bike is usually better than a total rest. And I actually prefer to just have them go hike and go walk because it's so different from what they are normally scheduled to do. Not everyone takes me up on it, but that's just no watch, no data, right? Just go for a nice stroll in the park. So, so that's, I think we handle it probably very similarly. I have worked with athletes though that, their Training Peaks is a lot of red. So, and it's constant. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. It's not from the training. It's not. And so in that case, what I try to do is manipulate the training a little bit, but I often can't get the athlete on board because the mindset is such that even though their lives and their work and whatever else, it's something outside of training that is making them fatigued. And of course, I always say blood work, right? Like, are you anemic? Are you getting your nutrition in? Are you sleeping enough? And, you oftentimes athletes say, yeah, I am, but we're not tracking food. I'm not seeing sleep data. I'm not seeing quality of sleep data, right? Like for some athletes, I do wonder if we need a sleep test because it's just not good quality sleep. Lots of other factors. So I always ask about that, but I'm not an MD. I'm not a doctor, right? So I can't really say much more than like, well, we got to make sure those things are in line. Baseline health has to be good. And then we approach like, what is your work like? And work's a shit show. And okay, well, can we improve that, right? Or can we can we figure out ways to make it less of a shit show? And sometimes we can't. And in that case, right, like we probably need to take their training down to like zone 1, zone 2,
Hmm.
because slamming zone 3, zone 4 threshold sprint Olympic distance races all the time, every other weekend, I mean, and yeah, I mean, it's a recipe for not making progress, and it's a recipe for a sick, but most commonly it's like we just skipped workouts and I'm too tired and it was a bad day. So it's poor planning, right? It's poor planning. It's not prioritizing sessions. It's not prioritizing health, and just hoping, I guess, that like somehow it's all gonna magically work out. So sometimes when athletes ask me, like I'm too tired, can I skip it? If it's day of, sometimes I don't respond, and that probably makes me not a very good coach, right? Or maybe not good. It might come across as a bit cold, but I think for some athletes that have a tendency to just want that like approval, I will, it depends on the day. It depends on what's been going on. I might respond like, I'd like you to get on the bike and spin easy, because I would like them. A lot of times once you do get started, it's more mental fatigue. Your body's actually not tired from the sessions you've been doing because you're actually not doing that much training. And once you get started, I say 15, 20 minutes, maybe you try the first interval if, for example, you're on the bike, and if it doesn't go well and you're still feeling tired and your heart rate's really suppressed, then just spin easy, but spin easy for 45 minutes, an hour. And then this is my example for a like, say if someone that's an Ironman block, which we do tend to rack up a lot of fatigue. If it's a weekend ride and it's a long ride and they're really fatigued, I will say get on the bike, spin easy for like 90 minutes, get off the bike, and then go take a nap. Like I don't want a get off the bike and then go do all these chores and
Yeah.
work and this and that, and like,
Go do all your
if
yard
you're
work.
gonna, I mean, I try to accommodate that too, right? Like if we really need to do yard work, then let's like plan it in the schedule, right? Like this day you're gonna do yard work. But when you're gonna cut things down and you want an outcome at your race, right? Like don't, like we have to, what's the word I'm looking for? Like uphold what we're aiming for, right? What we're going for. And if you're really too tired to do the bike workout, then you need to just step away and go rest, and like really rest, so that you can then get up and do the thing you want to do the next day. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I, I think
Yeah,
there's like big picture. So, like, if we go back and think about big picture concepts of like, what does it take to achieve a goal? Right. So, like, pick the thing. You have a big goal, and the goal is out there in the future, and it's several months away. And so, again, the answer to this question is like, should I train or not train? A lot of that is going to depend too on like, where am I at in this training schedule, right? This training block. Like, am I supposed to be tired right now?
right,
Or is the race like in 5 days? And I'm like, I'm more tired than I should be feeling right now.
right.
Right. I mean, so like a lot of it is like, when we say it depends, it's like, it depends on so many
Yeah,
things. And so in a big picture, like training theory conversation, what we know is that if your race is long, like an endurance race, half Ironman, Ironman, marathon, ultra marathon, long gravel bike race, channel swim, pick the thing, right? You want to do something long. Then the way to reach your goals and feel good while doing that is to train a lot, right? Like, and that's just like, I'm like, don't shoot the messenger. I didn't make up the rules. Like, that just is how it is. And so if you want to, and this is where things get tricky, because like, if you're the type A athlete who knows like, I have to get all this volume in if I'm going to perform, at that race, then it can happen that you'll err on the side of training through fatigue too much, right? And then end up hampering your race effort in the end anyway. And so, like the type A athletes, like if you're green across the board and training through tons of fatigue and never ever feeling good, it's probably like first thing I would do is like make your easy sessions even easier, right? Like a
Hmm.
lot of times, like the biggest mistake that's happening in there for that athlete is like your easy runs are moderate or your
Yeah.
lit bike rides, you're just pushing like 15 watts higher than you should be. And you end up
Hmm.
actually being moderate instead of actually easy. So like that's the first like tweak I would make for the type A athlete who is determined to get all their volume in would be like, let's take your easy days and make them even easier and then see if
Hmm.
you can end up having more energy on the key days. That is I feel like that's a scenario that I used to encounter more than I'm encountering now. And
Yeah.
what I'm encountering is more like they're exhausted from things outside of training, like outside of
Yeah.
life, like what you were talking about before. So if we go back to our theory of like, if I want to perform in that race, I have to have a really developed aerobic endurance system, right? And there's no shortcuts to achieving that. That's achieved through lots of volume. And if I can't get that volume in, then the first thing I'm going to look back at is what does my lifestyle look like, right? Like, am I starting from a place of baseline health? And that is the part that I feel like more and more I see it a lot. And it seems it's either that it's happening more now or I'm just way more
Yeah.
aware of it than I used to be. Like a decade ago, I was less aware that, this is a thing. And I was more like, buck up, train through hard, and when you're younger, maybe you could also like do that. Like if you're 30 and you're listening to us, like, you're like, what are you guys talking about? I can train through anything. Like, that's because you're 30. So like, just wait a little bit. But but yeah, so now what I'm seeing is like, okay, like let's go back and see. So if you're constantly tired to the point where like any workout is not going well, regardless if it's a key workout or easy workout, then it's like, let's look at like the baseline of are you coming from a place of health? And what lifestyle modifications can you make so that you can approach the physical training session with a bucket full of energy instead of like you're just dragging ass through the whole thing. So like if you're not, the first thing is like get your sleep right, right? Get your sleep right. If you're not sleeping enough and if you're not going to bed and waking up at a consistent time, and I'll tell you, I'm a parent of a teenager and I'm watching these teenagers do this summer thing, right? Where we're not in school. And so we're like staying up late and then we're sleeping in late and her schedule is so off right now. And she's just like living it up, which is cool, right? You're 16, but also then like, if you pulled an all nighter with your friend on Saturday night and then on Monday night you can't go to bed or can't fall asleep at 9 o'clock like you normally would, like, yeah, it's not a
Hmm.
mystery, right? Like we've solved that problem. We know that the the different routine on the weekend is affecting you on Monday. So
Hmm.
now it is your choice. Like as an individual, is that something that I'm willing to change or not? Right? Like, and so as your coaches, like I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but if you tell me that your goal is to qualify for an Ironman World Championship, then I'm going to be really clear with you and be like, well, then, staying up really late, till 2 a.m. on a Friday night or Saturday night is like not the way to achieve that goal in the end. So now, ball back to you, make a choice about how you want to arrange your life. Because a lot of that is more within our control than some people think, right? Like, so like there's lifestyle factors that like if you're really honest with yourself, you could change if you want to. There's always a choice there. The matter is just a matter of like, what are you giving up then, right? Like
Hmm.
nothing comes for free. So like if
Right.
you're going to bed at 9 o'clock on your Friday night, yeah, you're missing out on that social time with your friends. So like I'm not here to tell you skip the social time with your friends. I'm saying that there will be a priority shift, right? Like if that's more important to you than being fresh on Saturday so that you can do your workout to reach your Ironman goals, like genuinely that might be a super healthy thing. Go do your thing, right? But then don't come back and tell me that like, oh, I'm so mad I didn't feel good and like
Yeah. Yeah.
you're making that choice, right? Like it's a lifestyle thing. So figure that part out.
And sometimes, I'll use the athlete the example I gave previously of my super type A, right, workaholic, very driven athlete, and very wise. She's actually, it's not that she's just type A. She can be nose to the grindstone, but she's very interested in learning, right? And that's key, right? To learn about what she needs to do to perform at her best. And she's very open to that feedback that I had and the tweaks that we were trying to make together. The short of this is that for years she had a certain job and it was crushing her and it was definitely impacting her training. And it took about 6 months, 8 months for her to transition. She found another job in the medical field with a different company, shorter commute times. I mean, she cut her commutes down like probably, I mean, she at some point with her old job, she was having to commute like 4 hour, like in a day. I mean, huge commute time, shitty work hours, and so she's changed to a different company, and her training was going so much better. She's on a break this year. She's not racing Ironman. Elevated her performances, elevated her training, and she felt better, and she was happier. And yeah, it wasn't easy to change a job, but she recognized that her job was a huge barrier to her doing what she loved to do, and so
Hmm.
huge props,
Hmm.
right? Like, and that takes a lot of, we do have control. It's not always easy to make those changes, but it is possible. So there might be situations where you literally, like, you have a 2 year old, right? Like, you can't change that it's a 2 year old
Yeah.
and he's not sleeping or she's not sleeping. But then again, it's acceptance. This is not going to last forever. And so then maybe the reality is that like your super drive to PR, whatever it is, Kona qualify, maybe it's not in line with what your life is at right now, right? Like you
Hmm.
cannot make the changes because there's other people that depend on you and, we have those obligations. So, but sleep is huge. So if you are struggling there, that is number one. What's number two for you of how to solve the fatigue?
Potentially nutrition. It depends on the
I was going to
person, but
say,
like that would
yeah.
be the second thing I would just go to as like a default. The first question would be like, are you sleeping? And then how are you eating? And it would be a matter of like, how consistent are you eating? Are you trying to lose weight? And so you're skimping on calories here and there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Not only the amount, but the type of fuel that you're consuming and the
Mhm.
timing of when you're consuming it. Like all three of those pieces will work together to either provide energy for you or not. And so it may be the fact that like everything's going fine and then out of the blue you don't feel good today and it was because you chose to not eat. Well, like that's a real, I mean, and honestly, okay, I'm going to say that as soon as I thought that, I'm like, maybe not. To me, and when I say this to me, it's because I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but like I have a healthy relationship with food. And I just do. And I'm blessed with that. Like, I feel like lucky in some ways, but it's like I have a healthy relationship with food. So in my mind, this is a really simple fix. And so but as I was saying how simple this fix is, I'm like, I get it for some people. It's not as simple as it is for me, right? So for me, this is a simple fix. Like, eat your oatmeal before you go do that hard workout and watch your energy spike, right? It's going to be fine. But I get for some people, depending on like your prior beliefs about food and your beliefs about your body image and your belief about like this can be a lot trickier for some people to really like get a handle on seeing oatmeal as a performance enhancing aid instead of like that's going to make me fat right like
Mhm.
so I do understand that some people will interpret that differently but if you have and this is another thing. This is a little bit of a separate point, but we're used to like going down tangents here, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. The other day, I was listening to a podcast. I'm not remembering exactly now what it was, or but they were talking about like calculating how many carbohydrates. I think it was somebody who was talking about like Lionel Sanders, right? So if you saw
Mm.
like Lionel's
Yep.
video and he was talking about how he's in like a low energy state and he didn't feel like he has an eating disorder, but the fact that he said in his video that he was trying to consume 2,000 calories a day, like above and beyond what he, like, and that was just like for baseline, like eating or fuel or whatever.
Right.
And then he would fuel specifically for the training on top of that. And what they were saying in the podcast is like, even if you know that you're taking in exactly 2,000 calories in a day, like that, he's saying, oh, I don't have disordered eating, but like that in and of itself is
Mm,
like, that's different than what I do. And I would say, like, I have a healthy relationship with food. And if you're like, how many calories did you consume today, Michelle? I'd be like, I don't have any idea, right? Like, I don't track it. And I've had several people in my past life, and well, I don't know if you would call them like coaches, but like people who are trying to advise me on different things. And they're like, they had a point. They're like, well, how do you know if you're doing it right if you're not tracking it, right? And like, and
mhm,
I understand this theory of like what gets measured gets managed, right? So like, if I want to make sure I'm getting enough protein, then I would count, how many grams of protein, or like estimate throughout the day. And like, if I'm generally not trying to lose weight, but like I'm also don't want to gain weight, and I don't know. So like, do I need to count calories? And several people who I would say are like smart, well-meaning people have said, track your calories. Just do it for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, absolutely not. I will not. And the reason that for me, I make this decision. So I'm not saying nobody should, but for me, I'm like, I have a healthy relationship with food, and I want to keep it that way. And I know that like I'm the kind of person who has addiction issues, like in other areas. And so like, if I start tracking, if I get out my fitness pal and I start tracking everything that I'm putting in my mouth, and I'm like,
mhm,
I I see the potential for an obsession to begin. And the fact that like I've been within probably 8 pounds, like, right, like high and low, me personally, 8 pounds. In the last 40 years, I've been 8 pounds,
it's pretty
plus or
pretty
minus.
slim. Yeah,
Yeah, you know what I
pretty
mean? And so I'm
slim.
like, well, except for when I was pregnant, so that's different. But like, you know what I mean? Like and so like, I don't want to be obsessive about counting calories, because I think it would send me down a bad path.
Mhm.
And so anyway,
I think there's,
I wanted to share that because like I just
yeah.
feel like for some people it likely works, but if Lionel's like tracking all of his calories, and so it may be the case if you're like not eating enough, then like maybe the case of like tracking to make sure that you're eating enough is beneficial. But like I feel like I eat enough, and I know that I do because my key training sessions go well and my weight stays pretty stable, and I'm sleeping well at night, and I'm like, right, like I don't have any reason to believe that it's not. So if you're tracking to make sure you're eating enough, I might give that the thumbs up. But if you're tracking to try to lose, I think it's, for some people, maybe it works. For others, it might be a slippery slope. And I don't know about that. So anyway, so that's my opinion.
Yeah.
And like, it would be really cool if we disagreed. So go ahead.
So, well, on the one hand, I don't remember the full podcast, and I probably didn't listen to the full podcast, but knowing, and I don't know Lionel Sanders personally, but having followed him for a long time, he is an athlete, right? That he wants to be, like when he goes down an avenue of something, like whether it's blood lactate, testing, whether it's name it, right? Like he will go deep dive. And I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but my assumption is like for years, like most of his life, he would say he never tracked. He ate like shit, right? And then he had that episode of really poor blood work earlier this year, I think, where he was like borderline diabetic as a top performing athlete. And so that was kind of a wake up because he's like, I want to be around for my kid. I can't have this. He was getting up to pee like 12 times a night or something. And he was eating just extraordinarily high level of carbs, both in session and out of session. So my assumption is at some point he was like, I need to change my diet, right? And when we're changing our diet, I can see how tracking what we're eating from a macro standpoint, fats, carbs, proteins could be beneficial, as well as, of course, improving the quality. Because as I understand, there was a lot of junk food, there was a lot of fast food, there was a lot of, crap in his diet, and
Which I
he
think you
did
can
that.
get away with a lot more when you're younger, and
Oh
then it
yeah.
shifts as you get older, right?
Yeah.
So like some of this is like, take it with a grain of salt depending on how old you are.
Right, right. But I think it's also important to know because I think I see a lot of athletes think that because I'm an athlete, I train myself into health, right? And I can ignore what I eat.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's not the case either.
Hmm.
So yeah, we really do need to pay attention to what goes into our bodies. So I will say, I think for athletes that have an eating disorder, that tracking is generally not recommended unless they're working with a dietitian or nutrition that specializes specifically in eating disorders and they want to see from a standpoint of like, are you eating enough to stay healthy, right? I think that is one area, but it needs to be done probably under guidance. I have tracked, so I'm an athlete that I put on weight no matter what I eat. Like I've 8 pounds is amazing. And if I were you, Michelle, I would not track either, because when you're an athlete that has had that longevity of no change in your weight and you are mindful of what you eat, you're cognizant, right? Like, but you have a healthy relationship, no need to track. And I would say absolutely don't track. If you're an athlete like myself, who, like, my top weight when I came out of my PhD, before I mean, I was active, I was like late 20s, right? Was probably 50 pounds over what I raced at Ironman. And I didn't race Ironman at anywhere near what, I think Matt Fitzgerald would say was like an elite athlete, right? Like, my body fat was always much higher than my competitors. So I put on weight very quickly. And so when I have tracked what I'm eating, it's helped me. It's helped me uh, optimize my protein. It's helped me figure out how I can kind of get into a more manageable state, especially as I've gotten older. I don't track food now, but it's helped me. Now, I will also say there is a risk of, because as someone that, yeah, I would also identify as maybe having a bit, being a bit addictive, right? Like, my what I enjoy, but tracking is always such a pain in the ass for me that I'm never going to get addicted to it, because I really don't like doing it. I think most people don't like doing it. Um,
Did it change though? So like, and here's my concern, and I don't know the answer to this, but I feel like if it was me, like where my problem would be with it is like I would currently right now I can go eat a cookie and not like right
mm,
and like it's fine. Like I don't obsess about it. I don't beat myself up about it. I don't, I might choose to time it like after a workout because then in my mind it just like goes poof and like
mhm.
and so I might be cognizant of like the timing of when I eat it, but I wouldn't end up feeling guilty. I think my fear, so I'm curious about you, like your experience with this. When you're tracking food, do you, does it change your relationship with the food?
For
Do you
me,
know what I'm
it just,
saying? Like it's like, is it like, I have a good relationship with food and like that's what I'm trying to protect more than anything is that like
mhm,
because I know that there are things that I can develop a negative relationship with real quick. And so
mhm,
like
mhm.
I see that I could do that. So when you track your food,
Yeah.
do you beat yourself up if you're eating or like do you
Not really. I make better choices when I'm tracking, because, and
mhm.
usually when I've tracked with a nutritionist that I've worked with in the past. I've also just tracked for myself. But if I see the record, for me, it helps me make better choices. And I will say, so I quit drinking 3.5 years ago or so. In that time, I have definitely noticed that I will reach for more sugar and more cookies, right? More sweets, because I don't have the wine at night that I would normally have as my kind of like, you know, end of the day treat. And that's pretty common for people that they'll substitute, right? Like, and I'm not saying, I don't believe that I was addicted to alcohol, but I definitely used it in a way that I think that was my most unhealthy relationship with a food or a drink, right? Of substance, in terms of I used it for like calming medication, right? Like, stressful day at work, have a glass of wine. And so, if anything, and I don't, so I, didn't feel again like I had serious addiction issues, but even taking that thing away that brought me joy in the evenings, I will say that I'm more likely now to have the sugar, because alcohol is mostly sugar. It is all sugar, right? So, um, what was I going to say about that? I don't remember.
I was just asking about your
Yeah,
relationship with food or like
right.
does it change?
Yeah. So I make better choices when I'm tracking. I don't have guilty. I mean, I still will eat, like, if I want a cookie or something or whatever. It never negatively influenced me to the point where I felt like I was starting to have a poor relationship with food. The only time I felt like I was developing a poor relationship was when I worked with one nutritionist, and I will not say who it was. If anyone wants to message me on the side, I will share who it was. It did not work for me. And the reason is because she continually pushed high volumes of food, and I was continually gaining weight, body fat. And it, because that's very commonly, like, if you're overweight, then you need to eat more to up your metabolism. Like, that might be the case for some individuals. More than likely, I have a lower set point. This is what I believe about myself. I have a lower set point for my metabolic rate. And so when I'm over that even a little bit, I will put on body fat. Now, I also can gain muscle very, very quickly. And so I can get bulky pretty quickly too, which is a good thing in general. But, if you were to subdivide like athletes in terms of like their body composition. I'm not in the lean, thin category. Like I would probably be in the medium. I'm a soccer player, right? That was what I excelled at. So even from an endurance athlete standpoint, I'm more power speed based probably than a pure endurance athlete that has the long, lanky body type. So I think that's my baseline, I guess. So when she kept pushing big meals, big calories, big, for the training I was doing, that was when I started to get really frustrated. It was under that guidance that I started to feel like, just I don't know, more judgment, more. I don't. It was just I didn't work with them very much longer. So and I went back to doing what I was doing more mindfully, a little bit less carbs outside of training, right? Like back in the day, I love coffee and a croissant, right? Like, but that really is only like a special treat on occasion, not 3 times a week or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it has worked. Would I want to do it forever? No. It's also helpful for me as a coach to occasionally have athletes track so I can see what kind of foods. And we don't need to be like in my Fitness Pal or any of the trackers, like just literally list it in like a Google spreadsheet. Like, what do you eat for breakfast? Give me a roundabout like estimate. Because again, fatigue. So in, for example, a lot of my athletes that will skip their morning, well, they don't skip they sleep in and I'll get the workout in later, right? But work is
That's a bad
stressful.
choice.
Yeah, especially if work is stressful and you didn't have it planned out, you don't have it actually blocked out, and then you underfuel all day long. And this is very common. You underfuel all day long, and then 2 or 3 or 4, whatever time you have set to do your workout, I'm so tired. I'm so tired.
Hmm.
That's because you ate like a cookie all day long. And so like if you would fuel your body better during that time that you're working with some healthy snacks, right? And protein and whatever your normal is, right? High quality stuff, you would have more energy. Not as much energy potentially as you would in the morning. I do feel that a lot of athletes that can prioritize getting their workouts in the morning generally do like perform better. It's a pretty rare athlete that actually performs better in the evening after working a full day and dealing with all that. I've seen a couple that I've worked with that do
Yeah,
perform better, but
I've seen a couple who
yeah,
are really good and consistent about training in the evenings. And it surprises me because I don't think I would be one of those people. Like
yeah.
I'm definitely better like in the morning without a doubt, 100%. Like if I get the training done first, it always goes better than if I wait till later. But there are some that can do it in the evenings. I think as long as they're really consistent and they're like the type of athlete that's just very routine oriented, right?
Hmm.
That they're not going to get off track. Their lives are really simple. They don't have a lot of excess things that could potentially get in the way. They like training, right? So it's
Hmm.
something they look forward to. So I feel like a lot of that, the people that are most consistent with training are the people who genuinely like the work, right? Like
Yes.
I
Yeah.
like the feeling of swimming. I like tracking my intervals. I like being on my bike. I like chasing my avatar on Zwift. I like climbing the
Hmm.
hills on the bike. I like the feeling of running. And when you like that, you're way more likely to like want to do it more and then likely to go back and like set yourself up so that you feel good doing it. Right.
Hmm.
So like I think that it is a case that when we're younger, we can get away with and so maybe that's what, like earlier when I said, like, is this new or I'm seeing it more now, I'm experiencing it more now. I think that it might be the case that when we're younger and we have a lot more just natural energy or whatever, we don't have to go out of our way to set ourselves up to have a good training session. But then,
Hmm.
like, as we get older, it becomes way more necessary
Hmm.
to do the things like check the boxes that set us up to feel good during the session.
Hmm.
And so that's where like all those lifestyle pieces come in. Like, okay, so like, let's go. So we said sleep and then
Yes.
we said nutrition.
Nutrition.
And then like, if there's a third one, and this is where maybe we diverge a little bit, but like, I would say, I don't even know, like, there's not like a simple one word, maybe there is, and I'm just blanking on it right now, but like your ability to stay like calm under strain, like
Hmm.
your personal stress response. So
Hmm.
like what I mean by this is that like two people can experience the exact same scenario. And let's just pick a dumb one that has nothing to do with training, but like let's just say traffic. right? So like the traffic is terrific. There was an accident on the highway and the traffic is all backed up and you're sitting there and like you're stuck for 45 minutes before like you're even going to be able to move, right? We've all had that happen to us. Your response in that scenario, so like two people can be in that same scenario, and one of them is just
Hmm.
losing their shit,
Yeah.
right? And they're just flying off the handle and like, and really losing their shit. And another one is like, what a pain. All right, like let me listen to that audiobook that I've been listening to and like here's an opportunity to do that, right? Or like they'll just find another way to use the time because they realize that like there's nothing I can do about this. I'm stuck here right now. This is out of my control. And so I'm not going to let it rile me versus like other people will be in that situation that is also out of their control and then they will spin
Hmm.
further. And I feel like this is something that I can talk really well about because I used to be the person that spun out of control in that situation. And it is possible to learn how to manage yourself in those
Hmm.
scenarios so that you can let it go and not let it derail you in a way that like ruins everything else.
Yeah,
So I guess
absolutely.
it's like, I'll call it like stress response. It's like your
Yes.
personal response to stress. And what I mean by that is like those everyday scenarios of things that come at us. How do we deal with that? And I would say pretty much across the board, the people who have not figured out how to let shit go that is out of
Hmm.
their control, they're going to be either less consistent with their training or they'll force the training, but they won't be getting the results that we're looking for because they're never really in like setting themselves up to do the session the way that is
Hmm.
ideal if they're going to like recover from it and therefore adapt to it and get better from it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So anyway,
Yeah.
that's
No.
my number three, but like I don't know where you would go with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's having, so even if people have stressful lives, stressful jobs, like, because there are, I know people that do, that have things thrown at them, but they can remain, I mean, they might get knocked around, right? But they have this like inner sense of like calmness, right? Of
Hmm.
clarity. And I think that it's kind of, I mean, I think that's what you're talking about in like the stress response, right? Like you can, exactly. I mean, let things go. It's like water off a duck's back. There might be things that you are called to do in your job or in your life that you have to take care of that weren't expected, and that's part of life. But how far off your kilter are you knocked when you have to show up and do those things, whatever it might be? Pick up the kids when it wasn't your day to pick up the kids, sitting in traffic, stuff like that. So athletes that have that, yeah, an ability to remain calm under fire, right? Like truly
Hmm.
calm, not just act calm, but like just let it go.
That's a really
Yeah.
good point. Truly calm, not just pretending to be calm.
Right.
Like there's calm and then there's like Zen. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's such a good point.
Yeah. But I agree. I think because athletes that tend to carry a lot of the external stresses that are put on them and they shoulder them. And they also tend to be athletes that are, I'll just say it, like fairly self-critical, fairly, not always, but I have seen in my experience with athletes that judgmental, fairly critical, a lot of negativity, and some not always self-directed, but just a lot of drama, a lot of, and I think that does it kind of encapsulates like an, a lack of an inner calm and an inner like knowing of what is really important to them, what they need to take care of, what pertains to them, what they can control, and then letting everything else go.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to say this before I forget it. And like being able to differentiate, like that's somebody else's issue and not taking it on as their own.
Because that,
Right. So like it's super common that that happens. Like, well,
yeah.
and it can even be, I'm thinking of an athlete right now who might even be listening to this. She's an incredible young woman she's really smart. She's really physically talented. She's really strong. Her everything about like she's got all the ingredients and her job that she asked for, right? Like she wanted to be put in. I think she like her, generally speaking, it's like her self-esteem is such that she's like, that's the hardest job. I want that one, right? Because like I'm trying to prove myself that like I can do the hardest
Hmm.
things. And generally speaking, like I believe that she can. It's possible that she bit off a little more than she could chew, like with this particular job, is legitimately kicking her ass. And so, and she's really good at writing notes. And so she's writing back and forth about how things are feeling. And it's like legitimately kicking her ass. Like she's a young woman in her, like her HRV's in the gutter. She's not
Mhm.
sleeping well. The stress from this job is taking over her life in a way that is absolutely preventing her from doing any quality training at all. Like she's in the gutter and in the hole. And so as I'm trying to like help herself out of
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
it's like she's not in a like unless she quits the job, like
Right.
that's one option, right? Like that is
Yeah.
an option. Like she doesn't really see that as an option right now. Like for her, the consequence of that is like not an acceptable outcome or choice or
Outcome,
whatever.
right,
Like she's
right.
not going to quit the job. So okay, then it's like if you cannot change the amount of stress that you're under because this job just it is what it is, it demands what it demands, then your your other option then is to approach it from the other side then. Okay, so like how can you then show up in that situation and like do the things without like internalizing
Mhm.
the stress of that job? Like right, and so it's hard to describe, but it's like I don't know, like, can you just show up and do the thing? And this might be part of her problem too. And when I say her problem, it's because she's such a high achiever that she's always trying to do everything at the highest level possible. And part of me is like, if this job is impossible to do at the highest level, then there may be the lesson for you here might be learning to accept the level that is acceptable, right? Like this is like I'm meeting a standard that is enough. I don't have to be an A plus every single time on every single task.
Yeah.
And if that boss of yours is
Yeah.
somebody who is impossible to please and trying to please him is only driving you insane. So like work at a level that feels like acceptable to yourself. What is a level of accomplishment that you can when you go to bed at night you can say I did a good job even if your boss is still demanding more, right? But like that, but it's unrealistic like what he's putting on you. So
Yeah.
like that's what I've been kind of trying to say, like if you can't change that part then change your part, right? And this may be a
Mhm.
superpower skill that you can then
Right.
translate to like pick a scenario at some point. It may come over to like in sport where you're super stressed out and you're doing this Ironman and you've got a flat tire and you were leading your age group and now you have to stay calm under this pressure of like changing the flat tire so that you can get back on the road as soon as you can and then let that shit go and get back in your race. Like that's a skill.
That is a
And so
skill.
you can
Yep.
use these like outside situations that you find yourself in to develop those skills and be like, is this something that really should stress me out like down to the core? Or is it something where like I can just check that box and let it
Mhm.
go?
Yeah.
Learning to do that instead of like absorbing other people's like negative energy on us.
Yeah, well, because I mean, ultimately, I mean, what we're saying for everyone listening is like all these things are super fatiguing, right? Like the more you
Mm-hmm.
take on, I mean, it's draining and you feel completely spent before you even get to your session.
Mm-hmm.
If you have no boundary, I mean, yeah, essentially it's like if you're in these jobs or situations where you can't change it, can you build some boundaries? Can you set some, and maybe it's not even, it's like emotional boundaries, right? Of like
Mm-hmm.
what you're going to let in. And even if you're asked to do things that are above and beyond, okay, fine, I will do them. But then, don't put the emotional energy into that as well. Because yeah,
Yeah, and
it
carry it with
does,
you. We're like
and
learning to
carry,
let it go instead of carrying
right.
it with you on. You should be like, if you have to do it, can you just do it and then check the box and shut the door?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because the ability, I think, to stay calm too under fire is like if you can do that in your job, then you're more likely to do that on the race course, right? I mean, we all come. I mean, you've seen it all the time. Like people get super flustered in the race course. I'm like, I can guarantee that person also gets super flustered if things don't go right in their everyday life, right? Because unless you're practicing things, like it's more than likely going to show up. On race day in a similar, maybe not exactly the same manner, but like how you would handle it on race day will be similar to how you'd handle things going wrong within reason, right? Like unless you're I don't know, terrible things happen. Right? But even then, right, even when terrible things happen, you're in a car wreck, right? You're, whatever. Those things, like staying calm there is actually that's like life saving, right? Like you will save your life, you'll save someone else's life. Like the ability to stay calm and collected, is very, very important. And if we can train our brains to do that every day, it's more likely to happen. But
And this is
yeah.
what I'll say too. Like, so since I've been on both ends of this, like I've been on both ends. And the thing, like, if you're listening to this, you're like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I get really riled up. Like, I
Hmm.
don't love the word triggered, but like, like little things will trigger me or like set me off or make me angry or fly off the handle. That is a sign of nervous system dysregulation. Like if you're unable to stay calm in a stressful situation, and then like pick the level of stress. And so when if the smallest thing is setting you off and you're losing your shit at the smallest thing, you are really on the edge of nervous system dysregulation. If you it takes a lot before you start to lose your shit, then like that's a better sign. And then like the more sort of calm and regulated you can be in your daily life, the more it will take before you start spiraling and like losing it and going off. Right. And that doesn't mean like somebody who, like, how do we say, like, there's people that like bottle it up, right? Like, and
Hmm.
so like they're like, that's also not the way. It's like
Right.
what we're not saying is like let yourself get triggered and then just don't talk about it or don't say it. Like that's not it either.
Yeah. I'm
the
probably
like
more
the
on that. Yeah. I'm on that
Yeah, like that's
spectrum.
not
Yeah.
it either, because like at
Yeah.
some point that's when like you're just like you're tightening the tension with every single little thing that happens like that, and then it'll seem like the littlest thing just happened and you just got set off and you're like, wow, I
I didn't
didn't
even
even
know.
realize
Yeah.
how close to the edge I was, but like I really was. The answer is truly like when you have cultivated like this sense of like the inner peace, the inner calm, the knowing of like separating out what really matters versus like what really doesn't, understanding what is somebody else's issue versus like what is actually this is my issue, and like facing those head on. Breathing really like that
Breathing. Yeah.
was the thing for me. Like it was breathing. It was learning the low, slow breathing so that I understood what the calm nervous system state felt like. And then once I felt that, then when I wasn't there, it was way more obvious to me, right? So, like, if you can't feel the difference between states, you're likely just high wired all the time,
Hmm.
right? And so, like, figuring out how to use your breath to calm yourself, to come down. And by the way, like, this is like, it all ties back into the training and racing that we do, because it's in that state of calm. Like, that's your parasympathetic nervous system response. That's rest and digest. And so when we talk about sleep and your nutrition, like if you want to be able to fall asleep easily and you want to digest and absorb the nutrients from your food, being in that calm parasympathetic nervous system state is going to help you with like both of those things. And then training
Hmm.
is like it's a stress response that like takes you up. And so understanding the difference, and not that it's bad to go up into a nervous system state, like it's not, like we should
Hmm.
every day at some point like do something hard, do something stressful on purpose. And then when you're done with that, know how to have the skills, the tools, the strategies, and then actually implement those to bring yourself down, use your breathing. If it's journaling, if it's standing outside barefoot in the grass, like observing the horizon, like all those like little things that seem like, how could that possibly make a difference? Like, oh, it does,
Yeah. It's
right?
huge.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can bring yourself down. And then when you gain control over that, like when you understand nervous system state, then it's like I'm able to recognize when I'm all wired up right now, right? I'm wired up and I am on the edge of lashing out and doing or saying something I might regret, like this.
Hmm.
Then it's like I can bring myself down, I can calm myself, I can approach that with clear thinking, good decision making, from a calm state of like I can let it go. And that is such a superpower that we can use in training and racing and also in life.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. It's okay. We had sleep, number one, nutrition, number two, number three, stress response, regulation, cortisol regulation. That's
Hmm.
kind of the key thing. So I was thinking of there's a couple caveats that to train or not to train, essentially. I think we talked about like injury stuff, separate
Hmm.
category that should be talking.
Hmm.
Like if you're like, I'm really tired and I've got this ache, right? Tell your coach that, or you have to assess that if you're a self-coached person, right?
Can
Like,
I give you like I have a very straightforward, like, because I feel like is really helpful with injury. So like, and this is like, I didn't make this up. Like I saw it somewhere and I was like, oh my God, that's really good. So like running through injury, if like, there's three questions you can ask yourself. Is it getting worse while I'm running? The answer is stop, right? Do I have to change my form or like alter the way that I'm moving in order to make it not hurt? Right. And that would be like in a bad way, alter it, not being like, oh, I've improved the way I move. Then it would be stop. And then the third one is if I can feel it, but it's not getting worse and it's not impeding the way that I normally move, then it can be okay to cautiously proceed, right?
cautious.
Cautiously proceed. And I'll use myself as an example right now. Like just this morning, well, I mean, for the last week or so, my shoulder has been hurting, right? And like it makes a lot of sense. Like I've really upped my swim volume in the last couple of months, and last week I really was like pushing it, right? And then I was like, and when it was like last week Wednesday, my shoulder hurt. I knew that it hurt. I went and swam anyway, partly because of my past experience with like I've always been able to swim through a shoulder injury. Like I've never had I've had pain with shoulders, but I've never had an injury that made me not be able to swim through it. So I went and swam like over 5K on this shoulder that was talking to me the whole time. And I thought that it was going to be fine. And I was wrong. It wasn't fine. And so I was like, okay, now I have to like really be careful. So I took most of the last 5 or 6 days off because I'm like, this isn't, and it's only just a little bit sort of like it's a little bit getting better, but like it's still not perfect. And I went and swam this morning and I had an open mind about it. And I was using those questions, right? Like, is it getting worse? And I will tell you that like my first 100 felt worse than my last 100. So I was like, okay, you know what I mean? So
Okay.
I swam like 3,300 and it was like and I did change my form a little, but I think in a way that was genuinely good. So it was like, okay, well, this unstable position of like if I enter with my thumb down and I'm internally rotating and I'm dumping my shoulder forward, like that's causing me pain. If I think more about like, keeping my elbow up and pressing, with
Hmm.
like this part of my hand, that activates my lat and therefore my shoulders under less pressure. I feel less pain with that. And so like I swam through shoulder pain today, but it was like 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. It's not worse at the end, right? And now I'll monitor. So like my personal thinking of like I don't know what I'm gonna do for the rest of the week, but like my thinking is like, well, if it's worse tonight, right, then like okay, then I won't swim tomorrow. But if it's not worse tonight, and it seems like something I can kind of cautiously manage, like I'm not gonna go do a 500-meter TT, right? I'm not going to use a lot of hand paddles. I'm not going to, but like I can still like train in a way that is appropriate and effective through that injury, um, and try to manage the best I can. So it isn't the case that's like every time you feel a little
Yeah.
niggle,
No.
you need to stop and
Yeah.
rest. It's more like if it's not getting worse and you can move through it without having to like seriously do anything that is like somebody would look at and be like, why is she limping like that or whatever,
Right.
right?
Right.
Then that's sort of like my framework of training through injury or not, right? But if it's getting worse, you got to be honest with yourself and you have to stop and go do the rehab. And by the way, I would say on the days I wasn't swimming, I was doing everything in my power to do like all the soft tissue work. I was looking at the whole fascial chain, like loosening everything up, going beyond like just the shoulder. I'm looking at my pec, I'm looking at my psoas, I'm looking at my traps, I'm looking at all of it. And I'm trying to help myself because I care and I want to be able to swim without pain.
That's huge. And I, commend you. Great. Because so often I see athletes, oh, I've got this high hamstring niggle, or I've got a knee thing, or I've got, and like, I'm like, okay, well, what are we doing for prehab, rehab? What are we doing to take care of it? What, are we icing? Are we rolling? Or whatever, are we taking care of it? And a lot of times it's actually just, it's not everyone. Summer is just, let's just rest and ignore it and hope it gets better. But
Yeah, that's not the
honestly,
way.
that's not the way.
Yeah, it's not the
So
way.
either do what Michelle's doing, right? Or get into a physical therapist, or you might even need a knee joint, a doctor, right? Like go get it checked out. And I'm going to say one thing. So I've never, this was this last year, I had my first athlete that ended up with stress fracture. And it was shocking because we trained for a marathon together. She was seeing a PT, she was seeing a massage therapist. And this ache in her shin, it never got worse. It never got better. And we got through the marathon. I mean, you actually should very well. Not, yes, she got through it. It was a little bit sore, a little bit painful. So what I learned from that is, like, one, she has a super high pain tolerance. That two, stress fractures do not always show up in a way of like sharp pains, or it can be like a little bit of an ache, and so short of it, she still had pain even though she wasn't running. After she always takes a break after her season. She got into a doctor, did an MRI, and it was a pretty serious stress fracture. And I was shocked, and her PT was shocked because no one said, like, it was not on my radar that it was
Hmm.
that bad. And so now for my athletes that do have any shin, anything, because that's the more likely, or I will say maybe even hip, I will be relentless on MRI. Like, go get an MRI. And I don't care. Like, if you want to keep training under me, right, for whatever race, like we're going to do this, because I will not, because this athlete did no history of eating disorder, no osteopenia, osteoporosis, was fueling her sessions well. There was nothing to indicate that this was a stress fracture. And I, felt obviously horrible, because it just, and she didn't blame me or the training. I mean, she didn't think it was a stress fracture. She was thinking, oh, it's maybe a little, my foot's, she had some bunions and like arch issues, right? But of course that it's all connected, right? Your arches are tight, your calves are tight,
If your
anyways,
feet are tight, your
it's,
hips are tight, and
yeah,
yeah, like
it's the
yeah,
whole chain. That's my two cents. If you are dealing with an injury that's not getting better, right? And it's been weeks, like, you need to get in, especially if it's
yeah.
hip or shin. Maybe even
I did
shoulder,
it.
right?
Did I tell you I did an Ironman with a stress fracture?
No, I did not know
And I
that.
had no
Yeah.
idea. This is like probably 20, I don't know, 15, 16. I don't remember. But like going into the race, like, and the thing is, like, I would never say, I mean, I told you before, like, I have a healthy relationship with food. I don't restrict food. And so, like, in my mind, like, the stress fracture is for the skinny runner who
Right.
doesn't feel herself
Right.
and like really is running high mileage, right?
Right.
And like
Right.
I was running like maybe 30 miles a week. I love eating, I didn't feel like I was too skinny. Like I felt like I didn't check any of those boxes.
Right.
I had
Right.
a dull ache in my hip that I couldn't get to go away. It came about like maybe 2 weeks before this Ironman. So I'm like, well, I'm tapering anyway. So like I just didn't run that much like in the 2 weeks
Yeah.
before it was Vineman. And then I went
Yeah.
and did Vineman and I kind of shuffled my way through the run. I mean, I might have run like 4:30, 4:45. Like it was something where it was like I did this like shuffle run walk thing that like I just felt like I couldn't really run, but also like I wasn't that tired, but like I couldn't get my muscles to work. And
Right.
and then
Right.
afterward, I wasn't like it just like wasn't getting better. And it was probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks after the Ironman before I finally had the MRI. Because I just like stress fracture was just not on my
Right.
radar because I
Right.
just didn't feel like I checked
Right.
any of the boxes that would have like earned a stress fracture. I
Right.
was like,
Yeah.
and then it was like, and the thing is, it wasn't actually a stress fracture; it was a stress reaction. Because like
Okay.
after the Ironman, like I didn't run at all, but they're like, yeah,
Right.
there's a hairline like in there,
Right.
and I was like, that makes so much sense of like why my body was continually trying to shut me
Trying to,
down.
yeah.
And so like you will look at it as like, and even with the shoulder thing, I'm like, pain is a request for change. So I mean, my body's asking me to change something, and it might be asking me to change, like stop swimming 5 or 6 thousand meters a day, right? Like, okay,
Maybe
you're
that.
right.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I can like back off, like I can slow down like the rate of that
Yeah.
increase. But it also might be like, hey, you're dumping your shoulder, so you're doing something weird, right? Like with the movement pattern might not quite be right.
Mhm.
But yeah, the stress fracture thing, like,
Yeah.
and I had that happen with an athlete too that was just like, I mean, she was maybe running 25 miles a week. I don't think she was starving herself. And like somehow when she told me that it was a stress fracture, I was like, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
that's so far.
So we think we both kind of follow probably similar philosophies on run volume. I'm very conservative.
Yeah.
This is a triathlete. She's not a pure runner. So we were doing swimming
Hmm.
and biking and augmenting, and I was really progressing very slowly, very conservatively, double run days to take the stress off of one single long, I mean, all of the
Hmm.
things. And it was just not on my radar. So
Yeah. Yeah,
it
it
happens.
can come up. The
Yeah.
stress fracture thing can be real. And I think the thing is, it's more a matter of like, if it's not getting, but if you're doing all the things and it's not getting better, that's when
Go
you're
get
like,
it. Yeah.
okay, we need to, this is beyond, a soft
Right.
tissue issue. And
Right.
a stress fracture, by the way, for anyone who maybe has one, like, okay, this is my philosophy. It's not the end of the world. It's like bones heal themselves. Like in a way, there's a part of me that's like, I would rather have a stress fracture than like a tendon tear, right?
Oh,
Like the
well, I've
tendon
had, yeah.
tear, like, oh my God, like, right? Like the stress fracture is like, look, just don't put pressure on it for 6 weeks and the bone, it's going to by itself magically heal itself. Like eat right, don't stress it, and the bone will just do its thing. Like that's the time when you just rest and like let yourself heal. If it's a tendon issue, just
Yeah.
time away and rest is not going to let that thing
Right.
heal. Now we're going into a whole nother podcast.
Right.
So like
Topic.
maybe we put
Yeah.
a pin on
We'll
this.
save, we'll save it.
Like,
Yeah.
well, like, how do we, like what?
But yeah. Yeah. The one other caveat, yeah, that, so injuries, right? Like you have to take that into consideration. Are you sick, right? Like that's the other thing we didn't actually touch on. Or
Hmm.
have you been sick, right? Like, are you
Hmm.
coming off of a sickness and
Hmm.
you're still tired? Like a lot of times what happens is we start to feel better, and so we jump back into our normal training, which might be tempo, it might be intensity, it might be, and we do like 2 days of that and then we're wrecked. And what that means is you're actually not recovered. So what I always recommend coming off of an illness is, one, it depends on the illness. Take your training down to, if you're vomiting and in bed, don't train. Like that's insane. Obviously, you're not going to train. If you're coughing and hacking and like what, if it's in the chest, usually you better rest. If it's towards the end and you're, on the mend and it's not pneumonia, you're sure of that, right? Like it's not like you've had to cough for 3 weeks, right? If you've had a cough for 3 weeks, go to the doctor. But you can start to do easy stuff, right? Like we're talking, if you've had a bad cold for 3 or 4 days, like easy zone 1, zone 2, maybe low zone 2, right? Easy stuff. And I always say, I don't know, you're the swim expert. I always recommend people don't get in the pool until they are like totally clear. Some people like to get in the pool because they say it clears out their sinuses, but I've also had athletes get sinus infections from swimming when they were sick. And I'm just like,
Yeah, I think it
I don't
depends. I
recommend
think
it.
the ocean can be
So,
really healing. I
yeah,
find that the ocean, in an odd, weird way, it's like nature's healing or something, but
ocean
like
for sure.
it
Yeah.
is really, really healing to go do an easy ocean swim. But this is also what I'd say, like depending on how good of a swimmer you are, like if the ocean is terrifying to you and you're gonna have a big stress response just looking or looking at the ocean or
Right. Then
thinking about ocean
don't
swimming,
swim.
then obviously
Yeah.
like that's not right for you. But if you're an ocean swimmer and you're like that was always the first thing I did, like coming off being sick.
Hmm.
My first workout back would be like an easy ocean swim.
Yeah.
Um,
Whereas us in Colorado, up in Boulder County, if
yeah,
I was
yeah.
sick, do not swim in the Boulder Reservoir because you will be sicker, right? Like you will be sicker if you swim in the Boulder Reservoir. Even if you're healthy, you might be sicker after swimming in the Boulder Reservoir. So yeah,
I
that's my
like to look at,
situation.
so
Yeah.
coming back from, this is my rule about like training after being sick. So we see, and it only works for athletes who regularly monitor their heart rate and know like what
Hmm.
your heart rate is at different like effort levels. And so what we see is that coming off being sick, typically your heart rate's going to be elevated by like 5 to 10 beats above normal for like whatever easy pace you're doing. As long as that is happening, there should be no intensity in your efforts. So like, can you still go
Good
out and
one.
run easy? I would say if your energy levels, like if you want to run, like in your energy level feels like I want to run, you're coming off being sick and your heart rate's still a little bit elevated, my advice then is go ahead and run, but let it be really easy. Like use the heart rate as a cap. And if that means you run a minute per mile easier or slower than you normally would, fine. Like it's fine. Like just do that. And you'll know when you're ready to resume training as normal, when like your heart rate response is normal for
Hmm.
what you would expect for like that
Right.
warm up pace or power. It's normal. Great. Now we're ready to go. And that can be
Hmm.
a couple days after energy levels come back. Um,
Yeah. I totally agree. Using heart rate like that is really wise for
I think
folks
it's
that
one of the
that
best uses of heart rate.
do monitor it because I do have athletes that they don't look at it. They want me to look at it.
Yeah.
And they don't like when I say, no, we're not doing any intensity because you're still not totally recovered.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last thing I
Yeah.
was going to say about fatigue in general and like when to train and not train. And so this is my experience in training. I'm just going to say like women that are mostly perimenopausal, and I'll put myself in this category, is I have not had a lot of the symptoms that a lot of people, night sweats and well, that's the big one that you go to the doctor and like, oh, are you having night sweats? No. Okay, you're fine.
Yeah.
So but what I have had extensively is fatigue. Fatigue for no reason. Okay, maybe this year we've had some fatigue before because of
There's a reason, Mickey.
right. Okay. Up until this year, we'll say until this last year, I would say, outside of normal life stress, like I moved, that's stressful. Like that's a reality, right? And that definitely played into my overall fatigue. And then, yeah, what we have been dealing with this year, especially as a scientist, right? Like my career is complete. My career I might be ended, right? My career me and thousands of other scientists, our careers might be totally gone in the United States. That's a quite a stressful thing. However, beside that point, I think I have felt fatigue, excessive fatigue, and really for no reasons. I mean, there could be a hormonal, right? Like fluctuations or low progesterone, low estrogen, whatever. I mean, I have had those tested. Sometimes doctors say, oh, they don't matter. Other doctors say you shouldn't test because they don't matter. I mean, I'm still not quite clear on what tests actually do matter, right? In trying to understand hormone levels. But the reality is, I think for a lot of women, that is a pretty legit side effect of perimenopause, 40s, 50s, whenever you go through it. Not everyone, of course. So for athletes, though, because I commonly, for women in my age range, not just women, I guess I do coach some men that are in their 50s, 60s, and fatigue is real. Like it's one of the more common, like, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired. I will say, so usually, I think trying to get started. I think trying to get started because a lot of it, I'm just going to say there's like, if your normal fatigue level in your 30s was like here, right? Like you're just bumped up. And does that mean that we need to take the same rest days and the same amount of rest? And this is what I said earlier. It's like, I think movement is important. And so if you're really tired and you're like, I really don't feel like I can do this tempo workout or this sweet spot workout or this, whatever it is, run, just get started and get into the first interval. 90% of the time it actually comes around. So there's like this component of like mental fatigue that I think I don't know. Again, I'm not a doctor, right? So mental fatigue versus physical fatigue, they manifest the same way in terms of like, are we feeling ready and ready to do this hard workout? Now a lot of times it's like, no, we're not feeling ready to do this hard workout. But I think movement, because I've also had athletes fully step away from training in their 40s because they don't feel like racing anymore, because they're not making progress, because all the reasons, right? And I respect that. There's a lot of people that are, well, there's a whole podcast on like moving over to do basically CrossFit, right, in your 40s because you don't want to do endurance sport anymore. I mean, I won't go down that path of what influencers are trying to encourage women to become CrossFitters, but the reality is, and maybe that works, and if that makes you happy, you should do it. But I think the reality is like getting started goes a long way. And then
Hmm.
there are times where it's not going to come around. But doing that easy run, most like 99% of the time, you feel better after doing it. So I think there is a little bit more activation energy that has to happen sometimes as we get older to get things going. And then once we're in the routine or we're doing the thing, it's easier to maintain it. And that's also why I say that like my recovery days, I prefer to have like zone one, like super easy spinning or like, oh, we'll go for a walk. That, motion is lotion. And as we get older, like we need to keep moving. And I do
Hmm.
worry about my athletes that have stepped away. And I wonder, like, are you sedentary or what are you doing? I don't know. Sometimes they reach out and tell me they're hiking. And I'm a huge advocate of that's basically what I'm doing, hiking and strength workouts right now. So yeah, I think that's great and low stress. But
Yeah,
um
I totally agree with that. Like to train or not train. I feel like the bottom line of all of this, I mean, we've just talked for like, I don't know, 75 minutes on, um,
yeah.
all the different nuances, and there's so many things. But like, if we're like, what's the summary of all of this? It's a lot along the lines of knowing yourself as a person, knowing yourself as an athlete, knowing what
Hmm.
your tendencies tend to be? Like, are you somebody who tends to err on the side of too much caution to the point where you skip so much training? If everything isn't perfect, you're not going to go, and then you're not going to reach your goals. I mean,
Hmm.
period, you're not going to reach your goals. If you skip training every time you have any reason or excuse not to, you're not going to find improvement. But then also there's on the other side where it's like, if you're just a diehard and you're going to make yourself train no matter what because it's just mandatory and there's no excuses, and like,
Hmm.
died train, whatever, that's also not likely in your favor. And so the idea being that, like, if you know yourself, you know what feels normal for you versus what doesn't feel normal for you. And so, like, if you can make yourself go warm up, if you can remember periods of like when you thought, or sessions, I didn't want to train, but then I went and I felt better afterward. Like, if you can recall those experiences and make yourself get out the door, if you've been sleeping right, you've been eating
Right.
right, like everything is like, you're not sick, you're not injured, you're just unmotivated, right? So like,
Yeah.
I'm just unmotivated. If you're
Hate that
unmotivated,
word.
yeah, right? Like, go start and you might
Yeah.
find that you're motivated,
Yeah.
especially if you can join a group or whatever. Like, you
Right.
might find that the energy of that group takes over and you're like, oh my God. And then at the end, you're like, I'm so glad I did that. That's a really common thing. And so if it's just lack of motivation and you're confusing that with fatigue, I mean, it could be
Right.
very real fatigue, right? Like,
It could
and
be.
there's legitimate reasons to not train. And so I would say knowing yourself and the kind of athlete you are, and then making your decision within that context, right? Of
Hmm.
like, am I the type of person who's likely to drill myself into the ground because I won't allow myself a single excuse, right? Then, like, you could probably err on the side of skipping that one session, right? In
Hmm.
form of, enroll in sleep instead. But if you're somebody who's like, give me any reason at all to skip this session and I'm going to skip it, then like, you're probably one who's like, go start and try and see how it goes, right? And
Yeah.
I fully am on board with your easy movement. If you're really tired and you don't feel like doing a key workout, fine. Keeping your routine and just doing
Mm.
like really easy, like just staying like on the wagon and doing the thing
Yeah.
in the routine can be really, really beneficial just as far as keeping your consistency up, over time. Because it can be the case that if you take like a whole week off, like getting started again can't, like, the barrier to re-entry
Yeah.
can be like
Yeah.
really steep. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, our answer as always is it's nuanced. It depends on all of these factors, but knowing yourself and then, yeah,
And
allowing yourself grace either way, right? Like, just
absolutely.
be honest.
Yeah. Two quick points, and then I know we've gone on. This is a great topic. It's one reason I don't rely on motivation, right? Because motivation is very fleeting. It's a feeling, right? The routine that you set is the important thing. And once the routine is very comfortable, you don't have to make the decision. You just know that you're going. And so that takes the emotional, like, uncertainty out of it, right? Like, are you motivated? I was like, I don't know, but you might really be tired, but like sometimes we just don't want to do the thing. We're actually not tired. And like Michelle said, right, there are some super type A motivated. I would put myself like when I was in my early 30s, right? A lack of motivation for me probably meant that I needed a rest day.
Hmm.
Today, different. Like, I'm a different
Yeah.
athlete today, right? Like, lack of motivation just means I just don't want to do it, right? Like, I'm a different athlete now, and so I have to realize,
Hmm.
like, for me, I'm not going to rely on motivation because it could be, I would say, like, less than 10% of workouts I'm actually motivated to do, but I am routine driven, and I'm going to show up and give my best, assuming everything's in order. Like, I slept well, I ate well, whatever. And that's really the key, I think. The other thing is, you just said something really, really important, which is that you have to be comfortable with whatever decision you make. And going back to me saying I'm a bad coach, it's not that I'm a bad coach. I mean,
You're not
I
a
think
bad
I'm a
coach,
good,
Nikki.
I think I'm a really good
You're a
coach,
good
actually.
coach.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I want to help people get the confidence to make the choices for themselves, right? Like, don't
Same.
rely on a coach to tell you what you should, because I can't be in your shoes. I mean, I can look at
Hmm.
your past training and you can tell me how you're feeling and I can help you make that decision. But ultimately, you have to be comfortable with whatever decision you're making and understanding why you're making that decision. And it might be the best decision of the day to go take a nap, right? Like, that's
Hmm.
reality. So those are
Hmm.
my two
Yeah.
points, I guess.
Yeah, I tell
Yeah.
athletes too that, like, when I'm writing your schedule, I'm writing it 1 week at a time, typically,
Hmm.
with the information that I have about you at the time that I'm writing it. So, like, if something comes up
Right.
and like something happened on like the Tuesday or whatever, and
Right.
like and you had a key workout on Wednesday, like I just normally assume, because like usually you're good on Wednesdays. And so that's why I put the key workout there. But if something happened on Tuesday that like threw all that off and you're not in a
Yeah.
position to do it, then don't do it. Like put it off till Wednesday or till Thursday, or just skip it all together and we'll do it next week or whatever. And so it's like knowing that I wrote that schedule, assuming everything was normal.
Normal.
Right. That
Yep.
doesn't mean assuming everything is good. It just means knowing what I know
Baseline.
about
Yep.
you as an athlete and how you typically operate and where your fitness level is at. Like that's what it's based on. And so if something has changed, like in a couple of days, then it's like, well, alert me on that and then I can help guide you. Or you can just make the decision. I'm never mad when somebody's like, I didn't sleep well
Yeah.
last night. I had this thing going on and I
Yeah.
couldn't do this like
Yeah.
above threshold bike workout this morning. I'm going to do it on Thursday instead. Great choice. Like I praise them for that. Great choice. Good
Yep.
job.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you remember Chucky V?
Yeah.
Chucky Valu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
His blogs were the best. I
Oh
learned a
my God.
lot
Yeah.
from
No.
his blogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he had a blog, I remember, and it's just coming back to me that where he said, essentially plans are great, right? Like,
Yeah.
and a good coach will write a good plan, but the best coaches are actually in there adapting to the athlete as the athlete is doing the plan and tweaking.
Hmm.
And, that high touch in contact is where the magic happens. And
Hmm.
I absolutely believe that. And that's what I aim to do. I do have athletes that are on a longer schedule and I dislike it. I
Hmm.
have offered it again and again because people want a low price point, and I tell them up front, like, I will do this, but it's not the best way to train, right? And to work with me. It's to be, at a higher touch a week at a time. And I'm in there tweaking and commenting. And, if something didn't go well, we're going to shift things. Or again, yeah, like I slept like crap or I had to go off island, whatever,
Hmm.
right? So yeah, be adaptable. And if you're a self coach, it's great to have your stock plan, but adapt to that stock plan or the plan you developed, right, for yourself. Like let it be adaptable to your life, within reason, right? Like it is harder when we're self coach. I mean, we're both self coaching ourselves right now. Yeah. So knowing when to pull it back and when to, again, right, if it's an emotional thing that you've got going on, you're lacking motivation, like just get started and it might come about. There's that popular saying, the mood follows action too, right? Like get started. It's almost like turn your brain off, get started, and then see how it goes. And if it doesn't go well, then pull it back and, easy movement. So
Yeah. All right.
that's it.
That sounds good.
All
Let's
right.
call it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Michelle. And I think we've got more topics for the next one. Thanks all.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right.